in an effort to allow our pool owners to come in and get some guidance on how to take care of their pools. Pools have changed a lot in the 25 years I've been doing this. Back in 95, we had a time clock and a pump and a filter, and that was it, and a pool light. Right now we've got automation, we've got salt chlorinators, we've got import cleaning systems. So there's a lot for you guys to get a grasp on, especially if you're a new pool owner. So we came up with this idea to give you guys some guidance and answer any questions and hopefully improve your pool ownership experience. A couple of housekeeping items. We do stream this online as well, so we've got people that are joining us online. For those of you that are online, you can enter questions in the chat box. We have Andrew McGuire here today from our service department. Will be answering those questions. Jason Eakins is our service manager. We'll be going through all the stuff with the basic elements of pool maintenance. There's really two factors to take care of your pool, right? Circulation and filtration, which is what we'll be going over today, and then sanitization or chemistry, which we cover in another session. So we do probably 4 different versions of pool school. One goes through, we have a complete session on just how to take care of the automation, easy touch programming and things like that. We have one on pool chemistry because pool chemistry is very important and it takes some time to go through that. We've got these sessions from previous times, and this one will probably end up there as well on our YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/prezpools, you can see all of these sessions and more things on how to take care of your pool. We know it's a lot to digest, and repetition is kind of the key. So feel free to visit the YouTube channel and check out those videos. You can fast forward to the part that you really need help on. And there's specific videos on water chemistry and cleaning of pool filters. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He's going to go through this stuff. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. We've got a lot to cram into an hour because we've got another session that starts at 10:30. So we'll stay after and even outside if you need more questions answered. We'll certainly try to answer any questions. We have our service department is 2 doors down. You can see it if you have other questions or concerns. You can go over there afterwards. We also have barbecue lunch today. But if you're getting out, it might be a little early for some of us, but feel free to hang around. We've got vendors out there showing all the different stuff that you can have to, add to your pool if you want to think about that. But once again, welcome and thanks for coming out. Jason?
Okay. Take this one. Morning. Anyone been here before? Pool school? All newbies. Awesome. Today's my first time too, so we'll go through it together. We're going to start, as Ken said, with some circulation, filtration. Everyone, for the most part, should have the big canister. We don't have one out here, but you should have a skimmer basket at the deck. You guys should all know, be checking that over there weekly, bi-weekly. Kind of depends on your house, where you are. Leaves, trees, stuff like that. A lot of times neighbors blowing in. If you get a lot of stuff floating, you want to check that basket pretty often. Keep it clean. Like Ken said again, with circulation, once that thing gets full, it's not going to be moving water very much through the top of the water. You're now forcing everything through the drains, and then the top water kind of sits stagnant. You're not cleaning. So that basket at the skimmer about weekly usually is the best scenario. So once you get over to the equipment side, this canister probably looks familiar to most of you guys. This has got a lid on it. Hold that real quick. Let's pop this off. Okay. This lid, I'll come back to in a second. Got another basket inside here, just like your skimmer, a lot deeper, obviously. Same thing. You're going to check it weekly, bi-weekly. If you're checking it weekly and you really don't got a lot of stuff in here, you can maybe move it to every 2 weeks. I still recommend checking every week, keeping it clean. This is going to start trapping a little bit of bigger debris, rocks, stuff like that comes in through the drain for the most part. So when you're at your equipment, most of this is going to be buried, but you're going to have a valve out here. The biggest thing on this basket, and same thing with the pump, you're going to have an inlet. This has to go right here. If you squeeze it in any other way and push down on it, you're going to hammer it in there. What you're doing is you're blocking that you're blocking that entryway for leaves. Anything that basically sinks to the bottom gets sucked in. It's going to come in through here and now get trapped right here instead of filling the basket up. And again, you're going to lose circulation really quick. So as long as you keep that clean, empty it, get it back in right, you're good to go. Both of these lids are going to be the same thing. They do have a gasket underneath them. Not every time by far, maybe monthly, bi-monthly, you want to throw a little bit of lube on here, some silicone, something like that for a lid O-ring. We sell it here, you get it at Leslie's, any kind of retail store. You're wanting to lube these, 2 reasons. It's going to help seal. This is a suction side lid, so it's going to, when the pump's on, it's sucking the lid down. But you want to keep that soft, lubed. The lid will move tightly for you, on and off, and you're good to go. When this is not lubed, the O-rings start to crack. You're going to start pulling air in. You're going to start having more air. Then again, circulation. You're going to lose all that. The filtration's not going to run. Your in-floor system, if you got a vacuum, all that stuff's going to start to kind of die down, and then you're calling us going, man, something's not working. In-floors aren't working. A lot of times we get out to jobs, it's an O-ring, it's something like that. Simple fix, simple baskets are clogged. Pretty easy stuff. So keep that lube. This one, same way on the pump. It's probably a little bit different than your guys' pumps just because you are used to VS pumps with the brain right here and the drive on it. Same internal guts, but same thing. So this one's got a lot smaller of an O-ring, but you want to keep this lube. You got the same kind of basket. So obviously a lot shallower. You got the same hole, same thing. If you put this in, you really have to cram it in. If you get in right, it sits nice and you're good to go. You got that entryway for the leaves. By this basket, you shouldn't have a whole lot of stuff. You got leaves going through your skimmer. You got leaves going through your leaf trapper over here. Shouldn't have a whole lot of stuff in this basket. You still want to check this though, every couple weeks, make sure it's staying clean. Both these lids don't need to be hammered on. We see a lot of people when we get out to jobs are taking metal hammers and they're hammering this thing on. If you keep it lubed, you can spin it pretty tight. Again, it's a suction lid, so when everything's running, it's going to kind of grab everything and pull it down. So that gasket sealing, the best thing to do is keep a rubber mallet if you need anything to help take it off. So when you're taking it off, it's counterclockwise on both lids. You can kind of tap the tabs, lids off, baskets out. Emptying them. These are real important. Same thing with the skimmer. I mean, anything that can impede water flow is going to get to usually in-floors, and that's where we come out. The in-floor start shooting out instead of, let's say, 10 feet. Water flow is really dying down. They're only cleaning a foot or two, and that's when people call us and go, something's wrong out here. Well, generally it's maintenance, filter, stuff like that. Any questions on the baskets? Good.
On the O-ring, you take it out and just put that silicone all the way around?
So on the O-rings, if it comes out, I usually pop it right back in that lip, keep it in there, a little bit of lube while it's in there. Don't need to hammer it with lube. I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of like what you and I were talking about with the filter. A little bit on this O-ring, kind of wipe it with a finger. You don't want to overdo it. What that does is it attracts rocks, dirt, stuff like that, and then you're in trouble. So, but a little bit on there every month or two to kind of keep it soft, keep it moving. So, alrighty. How many salt cells are in here? A lot. Good. Okay. Salt systems. This is going to be about, we'll put this up here. It's going to depend on season. So in the wintertime, these will generally get a cold water light. You guys probably went through that. Some of you may have seen it. The cold water light will come on. It's not producing at that point. It's not gonna produce a lot of that calcium buildup inside there. You're generally good to go in the fall, winter. Still check it monthly, bi-monthly. Open it up. You're gonna pop the unions on or off. These have a union in your system. Obviously, you got plumbing coming up from both. The unions are counterclockwise. You're gonna spin those out. This thing comes out. What you're looking for, it's hard to see, I'm sure, for everyone, but inside here, you're looking for clean blades. You're looking for no calcium buildup. Everything's good to go. Especially in the wintertime, if you pop this open, it looks good. You're gonna put it back in. The biggest thing too, before we do cleaning, well, we'll come back to it. So cleaning, they sell these cleaning stands. Let's say you open this up, you're gonna have calcium buildup inside here. But you're doing about every month, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how much you're using your salt system. If you got a lot of swimming going on, you got a lot of bather load in the pool, stuff like that, you're going to be cranking this guy up to run a lot longer, right? 90, 100%, you're cranking your schedules up. You're going to produce a lot more calcium inside here. So when you're going to clean this guy, you're going to take a cleaning cap. You can go on either end, and you're threading this on. It does have an O-ring, obviously, because you're going to fill this with water and a little bit of muriatic acid. And again, you can go from either end, doesn't matter. So 60, 70% water, if not more. It depends on your calcium buildup, but you're going to fill this up pretty good ways with water. You're going to take some muriatic acid, same acid that we're adjusting pH down with. A little bit in here, it's going to bubble. You're going to let it sit. 5-10 minutes is usually all you need. If you're letting this thing go, summertime especially, if you're letting this thing go and it's a month, 2 months, sometimes they get pretty thick in there. You're going to have to soak it a little bit longer. You want it clean. You want to be able to see through that. You want to see light through it when you're done cleaning it and have it back to brand new again. The other thing on this, and kind of a good indicator on cleaning these guys, is your pool. So if you get into, come outside, you're going to sweep the pool down, you're going to check the skimmer basket we talked about, and you see little white flakes on the bottom of the pool. That is this guy cleaning itself. It has a reverse polarity on it where it's attempting to kind of kick that calcium off the cell. You're going to see it back at your pool. It pile up. We get a lot of calls in the summertime. A lot of people think salt's building up in the pool. It's calcium. It's calcium flakes from this guy. If you've got those building up in the pool, you want to check this. You want to inspect it, make sure everything is looking good. Pull it out. Sometimes they look clean. I mean, you'll get the piles in the pool. This thing's cleaning itself. You get in here and it's dead clean. You don't need to mess with it. Usually, if you got those flakes building up in the pool, you got a problem in here where you just need to keep clean it. 5-10 minutes. Soak it. Again, the water and acid. Any. So you're always going to add acid to water. Yep. There. You want to dilute it down. You're going to fill this up once you get the cap on. You're going to fill this up mostly water, like Ken's saying. Then you're going to add your acid. I usually will fill it up right here where you can start seeing the water right above the blades. You don't need a whole lot of acid, especially if you're staying on top of it. You're going to dump that acid in. I mean, little amount. Acid's heavier than water. It's going to sink to the bottom of the cell. It's going to start eating up that calcium. And again, 5-10 minutes of soaking. Generally, what I do, so you're not dumping in the yard, stuff like that, I'll go into a bucket and I put it back to the pool. It's just acid. It's a acidic water at that point, but it's not a lot. Just so you're not dumping it in the yard, your dog's not walking through it, stuff like that. So, any questions on the salt cell? Any other questions, I should say? No? All you guys without salt systems, chlorine tabs for the most part, floaters. Yeah, so the floaters, there is no maintenance on. Obviously, you want to keep those things full. You know, and those are going to bounce. 3-4 tabs in the summertime, depending on the size of the pool. Going to wintertime, you can usually get like 1 tab in there and they'll last you 2 weeks. You probably went through the wintertime, you know they're not burning through tabs very quick at all. So once the water starts warming up, once you start swimming a lot, you're burning through chlorine. So you're going to go 3, 4, 5 tabs even sometimes on the bigger pools, and you're doing them every week, you know what I mean, to keep the chlorine in the water. So no maintenance too much on the floaters. Tabs, the only thing I could think of, you never want to add them into your skimmer. You don't want to throw them in your skimmer basket and let them sit there if you can help it. I've seen pool guys, for whatever reason, throw tabs into a pool, throw them into the interior. You come home and you got 2 pucks sitting at the bottom of your pool. Always a bad idea. If you see that with a pool service, you want to call them right away. That can bleach your pebble. It can do nasty things to your interior. So that should never be done. So always, chlorine tabs are always in a floater. So.
I think it's important to mention that chlorine tablets have a really low pH, right? So that's like dropping acid, a pool of acid on the interior, similar, right? So liquid chlorine has a high pH. So you have to understand that when you're adjusting your chlorine, it's going to affect the pH. So that's one of the nice things about a chlorine floater is the chlorine tablets are stabilized, so they have the stabilizer in them, and they have a low pH, so they kind of do the job of giving you chlorination plus keeping your pH down, plus putting the stabilizer in. So in a salt system, you've got to remember to do those things separate, right? two ways to control the amount of chlorine that's going in, right? You can increase the number of tablets in the floater, or you can open it up wider, right? So if you're gonna go on vacation, you might turn that down a little bit, close the vanes a little bit, load it up with tablets so that they'll last the whole time that you're gone. If you need a lot of chlorine, you can open that up as long as you're there to adjust it so you don't drive your chlorine too high. Okay?
And we have a whole class on chemicals, so we kind of touch base on it today, and then we have another pool school where we literally spend 45 minutes to an hour on just chemicals. So, okay. I'll come back to this pump just because I forgot about this being cut open. One thing that I failed to mention on the baskets in here, you generally won't run into this. If you're cleaning your baskets, you're kind of keeping an eye on them, but every once in a while these things will split. You got a lot of debris in here from storms. What you're looking at, this is obviously a lot easier to see than when you're in here. Normally you're going to come in from your lid. If you get heavy debris in here, and let's say your basket cracked, let's say you got an issue there, sometimes you'll get leaves, stuff like that will start jamming up the impeller. The impeller is your water movement. So if this thing starts to get jammed up, you're not moving water. And again, like Ken was talking about, filtration, circulation, it's all dead right there. So once this impeller is clogged, not super common, but you want to check that. If your fingers are long enough, obviously with your breaker off, you don't want anything running, you don't want anything to happen to come on, you don't want the wife kicking something on while you're in there working on it. You're going to want to try and reach in there, and they do sell tools also to get in there and clean the debris out. The biggest indication of this, especially on high speed, if you're running your high speed, if you think your impeller's clogged, if you can't feel in there, you'll feel buildup in there. If you can't get in there, you can turn your high speed on, and over here at your filter, let's see if I can turn this, your pressure is going to be really low. So you don't have any water circulation. So you know this thing's trying to crank, it's got high speed on, it's running. You're coming over here and you got 2 pounds of pressure. You're not getting any water movement. So chances are this impeller in here is clogged. So again, not super common, but it's good to know. Generally, if you have an issue here, if these things will usually only crack if you hammer on them. I mean, if you're letting them build up with leaves, rocks, stuff like that, these things are eventually going to take and just open up on you, and then the leaves are going to try and go to the next spot. If they get through here, they're in your filter, but generally they're going to clog that impeller. So the key here is keep the baskets clean, keep everything moving. You got everything running through clean like it should be. This guy will pretty much stay clean. Any questions on the impeller? Good to go. Alrighty. We do have the cleaning caps for the salt cells. Everyone got a cleaning cap for their cell? Pretty much? No? We've got some over here. Let us know after the class. What price on them? New pools, we should be, I mean, if you guys are new, they should have been handed to you on startup. So the ones that are missing them, get with us after the class. I'll get you a cleaning cap. So we got a little, we sell this at our office over here at the retail store. This is kind of what we were talking about with the O-rings. Just a lube, just to keep it clean. We sell these, they sell them in big bottles at Leslie's, stuff like that. You're gonna want to get this and keep it on hand for these 2 lids especially. The Pool RX, this is just a mineral system that we sell. You throw this inside the pump basket. This is going to help chemicals, kind of reduce chlorine use. It's just a mineral. What's the best way to describe this thing?
It oxidizes, so it helps break up the chlorines, helps break up the lotions and stuff that get in your water. It just helps you keep your water more sparkling clean.
For a saltwater pool,
Yeah.
it's a chlorine pool.
Work on either.
So that's a misconception a lot of people have that a salt pool isn't a chlorine pool. Salt pool is just a different way to deliver chlorine. So instead of the tablets or liquid, you're using that salt cell to convert the sodium chloride into hydrochloric acid, which is the same thing as chlorine. So the nice thing about salt is because since it's constantly creating new chlorine, you don't have the bad parts of chlorine tablets where you get a buildup and get chlorines and they combine. We'll talk about that in the water chemistry class, but because salt is constantly creating new chlorine, it basically shocks your pool constantly. So you have softer water, you don't have the smell of chlorine because the chlorine needs to get busted up by the new chlorine.
How long does that mineral basket usually
About 6 months.
About.
Yeah, about 6 months.
Season.
Yep.
Which filter does that go in?
This is going to go inside your pump basket. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty. This is a Pool RX. So we sell these. We have them over at the retail store. So if you're interested in this, we walk over there, and hopefully we'll have a little time in between classes. But we got coordinators over there that'd be more than happy to help you. We've got these over there. So yeah, heavy, just sits in the basket. So. Cool. No, I mean, like we said, so if you're keeping this basket and the skimmer basket clean, you got good water flow. This one generally won't have a whole lot in it, especially if you're keeping the baskets clean. This one's gonna, even if you pack that in there, you got plenty of room for water flow, sure. So, yep. All right, the big guy. Anyone not clean the filters yet? Been kind of scared? All new. Okay, so we're good. This is the one that usually everyone's kind of afraid to do, and they got these scary pictures of guys blowing up and stuff like that on the filter. So the biggest thing with this guy, first step, always breakers off. Kind of like the baskets, breakers off. Always breakers off. You want to make sure nothing's going to come on you. Nothing's going to run while you're out cleaning the cartridges in the driveway, something like that. So with your breakers off, you got an air relief up here. This is the orange guy. You're going to spin that. What it's going to do is open up. So now it's allowing air into the system. All this water is going to basically track back down to the pool to a certain level, right? To where your plumbing is coming in, wherever it is. It's going to come in right at that level, and then you're going to stop. So all of you that have cleaned the filters, you know, when you pull the cartridge out, you always got a little bit of water in here. Before you get to that filter spot, or where you're taking them out, you're going to open up the air relief, right? You're breaking a vacuum seal. If you forget to do this, you're not going to have anything blow up on you. You're just going to fight the lid a little bit more because of the suction on it. So you're going to open that up. You're going to break the seal. You're going to have water about right there. The next step, you got a drain plug down here, and I know it's a lot easier to get to on our display unit. So with the plumbing, we get questions about that all the time when we're doing orientation. So you got plumbing and everything coming out here. So it's a little bit of a bear to get to, but the best thing to use on this is channel locks. So on the fatter part of the plug, you're going to take channel locks. It is upside down, so you're going to go clockwise. You're going to spin that thing out of there all the way till it drops out. The remaining water that's in this filter is going to drop out. I think we were talking about it. You'll have pebbles in there, especially on the newer pools. Like when the first time you do this, you'll see some pebbles. It's all normal. You'll have a lot of heavier debris down at the bottom. You pull that plug. The best thing to do at that point, and we're going to get into the cartridges, but you would take a hose and kind of rinse it out. Make sure everything is clean down at the bottom and you're running good. That's second step. The third step is going to be your clamp assembly. So this guy right here, we've taken it off just for time, but this is obviously going to be up here. What I've done in the past on orientations, because it's hard to see for some of you guys, I'm sure, but this is 4 separate pieces. So I've met a guy that kind of put this all together backwards, and me and him kind of came up with an idea. Before you guys take this apart for the first time, because it is 4 separate pieces, snap a picture of it. Until you get it down and you know exactly how it's going to sit just like this. So you snap a picture of it. Most of you have been doing this. You're going to go, I know how it goes, right? Some guys, and the customer I was at put the spring in the middle of the band clamp, right? And then tighten the nut up. It's sealed just enough to hold pressure and then launched on them. So bad news. He was super cool about it. It was his fault, but we kind of came up with that idea to snap a picture out if you're unsure. That way, when you go to put it all back together, you kind of have a reference point, right? So that's a 7/8 socket. You're going to pull that clamp all the way off. This has to come all the way up the thread, so where your clamp looks like it does now, that clamp is getting stored somewhere else. You're into the filter. So all right. So first thing in here is your manifold. I kind of just give this a little bit of a wiggle and pull up. You're going to set aside. Don't want to forget about this. It happens. It's easy too. So again, I think we were talking about it at the beginning of the class. You have a strainer air relief up here. This is built for any kind of air pockets in the filter. When you kick everything back on, it allows the air back to the pool. So you will have a strainer on this. They do get pretty dirty. They get pretty hammered. So if you take your finger, kind of wipe it off, a hose even, get it clean. This thing does spin off if you had to take it somewhere else. Kind of run it through a hose real quick and get it clean. And then just kind of squeezes back on. So the cartridges, one by one, you're going to take these out, driveway, somewhere in your yard. If you got a spot in your yard that you're okay with dirt, you're basically going to take them out. A good nozzle on the end of your hose, garden nozzle, something like that, something that's going to be comfortable on your hand, because you're going to probably take you about an hour to hour and a half to clean all these, depending on how often you're doing it. So what you're looking for, obviously these are brand new, but you want to have it look like this as much as possible when you're done cleaning it. So you're going to go, I go from the top and I go in sections, and I'll just let it keep running down until you get to the whole cartridge. Most of you have done this, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You kind of create your own way of doing it. No power washing. Power washing is kind of dangerous. If you stay away from them, it might be okay. I don't ever recommend it. I just use pressure off your hose. Nozzle on that is usually enough. Ken and I were talking about it. Wasn't the name of the place?
So there's a company in Tempe called Filter Clean, and all they do is clean cartridge filters. They recycle the water, they don't waste the water. They'll reband if the bands break, they'll put new bands on, keep the fleets separated. I think we looked, Andrew, you got that on here. I think it's 17 cents a square foot. So for a 420 square foot filter, you're looking at about $50 to get your filters clean. What I've done for 20 years is had 2 sets of filters, right? So instead of wasting a nice Saturday or Sunday afternoon cleaning my cartridges, I'll have the clean ones ready, swap them out, put the dirty ones aside, either run the filter clean, or when I get time, I'll work on getting them clean, and then next time I'll have a clean set available to change them out. But they do, we have a picture of what their process looks like here. So basically, they have a container, they sit the cartridge in, and it sprays water on it like your hose does, except it spins it around, so the centrifugal force gets stuff out, whereas when you're spraying, sometimes you look and you see that that leaf or something just gets pushed in further, and you got to really work it. Just because it spins all that stuff out and gets them really clean. They recycle the water, so it's a green solution. Like I said, I do this about once a year with mine just to get a thorough cleaning. So that's something you can consider as well. And they have, I think on their website, they have a coupon on there to save 25% on your first cleaning, so you can try it out and see what you got. Basically, university and the 101.
Can't beat $50. $50 is an awesome price to.
Or 37.50.
Yeah, I mean you can't beat that.
So depending on how valuable your time is, and whether you have time or whether you've got kids that you can assign that task to, that's another option. If nothing else, once a year, get a good thorough cleaning. That's probably the #1 thing to extend the longevity of your filter cartridges is regular cleaning and thorough cleaning. That's the first thing that's going to ruin your filter cartridges prematurely, is let them stay dirty, because it'll just impact all that stuff in the filter media, and it's just hard to get it out without a good industrial kind of cleaning solution.
Yeah, I think that's cool. It's a matter of driving. Some of them out in Blackstone and all they did. You got some driving to do if you want to haul some cartridges down. So that's like I said, you can't beat that price. Most pool services companies are going to be about 90 to 130, 140 just to get out there and do the filter. So so if you're doing it on your own, you're going to save $37. Or if you want to run them down there, that's an awesome price, really, even $50 without the coupon. So so that's a great question. The question was how often. So these are going to be about every 2 to 3 months. When I do orientations with new homeowners, I literally, like, people look at me kind of funny because they've just bought the brand new pool. And I'm telling them, like, in monsoon season, like I'm out in Santan, I'm cleaning filters every month. You know what I mean? In that summertime. In the wintertime, you can go like a 2-3 months. Just like the salt. So you open it up, inspect it. I'll show you a way to check too with the gauge when we get it all back together. But generally 2 to 3 months. If you're doing it every 3 months, you're on top of it. You're not letting it go. I've been to plenty of houses where they go, oh, I do these once a year. They're going to really get hammered. It's just like the baskets, just like everything. They're going to really get hammered. The problem is you're impeding water flow. So especially on in-floors, let's say those heads are coming out at, let's just 60 miles an hour, right? The pressure. Once you let these things go for a year, your heads are now down to 15, 20 miles an hour. So they call us a lot of times. And our office is trained, hey, have you cleaned the filters? That's the number one question right away. Everything's hitting these at 80 miles an hour from the pump, and then it goes through the center and back to the pool, and your heads are coming up and just kind of petering water out, right? And then they call us, go, this in-floor, it's not cleaning. It's these guys. So, and you get like, if you're taking care of them, you get 4 or 5 years out of them sometimes. Generally, 3 to 4 years is the lifespan on these. Like Ken's talking about, if you can get them relaced with the rings, and you're taking care of them, you get a lot longer life out of them. So, especially if you're doing a double set, you're just going to expand it even more. So you can pop a new one in and change them out. Go ahead.
Does that system pull evenly through that filter, or is it just like do like the bottom half? Like some hot tubs,
It's generally you're like in the monsoon season, you're going to open these guys up and you're going to generally see it.
Right, but I mean, like when it pulls through that, when your water circulates through that, is it as
It's a good question. Let me answer that. So when you pull that cover off, you're going to see from the front where those inlets are, you're going to see a lot of debris on the front side of the filter. Right. So another thing, a good idea is to label the filter, number them or letter them, and rotate them back and forth, right? Because they're always going to load up in the front first. So you don't want to have those filters always there because those are the ones that are going to fail first. So you rotate them front and back, and that way the load is spread out.
I also turn them over.
Yeah. There is no, yeah, that's perfect. There is no right side up or down. Go ahead. That's a great question. So the question is the normal pressure on a filter, and it depends. It depends on a few things now with the variable speeds. Back in the day, like Ken was talking about earlier, back in the day, we used to be able to turn a pump on. You would know pretty much it's 18 to 20 on an in-floor or something, right? So when you're checking for pressure, and that's what we're going to get to when it's all back together, but when you're checking for pressure or maybe seeing if it's time to clean the filter, you want to kick your high speed on. And if you got in-floors, even then it's tough because it's going to fluctuate, right? As it switches zones, as it switches to steps, you may increase pressure a little bit as it moves to the floor where you got high nozzles down there. Generally 24, 26 PSI is where you kind of hover around, 22 even if you're, depending on where your equipment is, kind of in correlation to the pool. I like when I'm doing intros, anything 28, 30 where you're starting to hover around there consistently, it's time to clean the filters. So go ahead.
Question, well, the guy came with, get the 30-day free.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, no, don't play with those. Just play that time. And he said, watch the gauge. If it goes up there, clean it.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't go quite up there. I'm hovering around about 24.
Yeah.
23. I cleaned them recently. I had sand about this much in the bottom.
Yeah.
Just sand. And it was like, oh my God. I'm glad I just cleaned. Something just said it's clean. And it was a lot of sand.
And see, what you're talking about is tough because all that's sitting down here, right? And so you're covering maybe 30% of the cartridges. You still are up here. If you're clean, that water can still pass through there. Your pressure's not building up. If that thing got all the way to the top, your pressure's now, and now you're hovering around 30 all the time. You go, something's going on. So like when we get a lot of calls in the office, that's the first thing to do. Kick your high speed on, let us know what your pressure is. If you're hovering around 30, it's time to clean them. When I'm doing orientations, that's why I'm going, hey, put it on the calendar every 2 to 3 months. The pressure gauge is a good indication. I'm not super big on watching it. I'd much rather you put it on a calendar. Like every 2 months, just pop the filters open and we're hosing them down, right? So, and again, you'd be smart about it. If you're out in Queen Creek or Santan like I am, if you're way out in some of these areas that are getting hit hard with the dust storms, you're going to go, man, I went through like 3, 4 of those dust storms. I'm going to do them again. You know what I mean? You just be safe on it. So that way you're not, it's tough. Like you're saying, you got piles up in here and your gauge is still going, I'm all right. Everything's moving through. So, and you open up and go, what the, like, it's so.
Was the sand in the bottom or
It was in the bottom. It was in the bottom, but it was a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's in the bottom, it's not affecting the filtration because the water's still going through the filter. Right. So the bottom of that is meant for about heavy debris to drop in there and stay out of the
Yeah.
filters. Okay. So that's why you didn't see any change in pressure because it wasn't affecting your pressure. Right.
Go ahead.
So with the new pool, since there's more pebbles and stuff that are going to be in there, when you got things for the first time?
Well, that's like we were talking about. So a lot of that will float down to the bottom. But new pools, especially plaster pools, but even pebble, like a month in, 2 months in, I just do it just to be safe. And it depends on season again. So how old is the
The
pool?
important thing to remember
Yeah.
is there's so many variables. If you're in a neighborhood that's mature and there's not a whole lot of construction going on, there's not dirt blowing around, you've got, fairly desert landscape where you don't have a bunch of leaves going in there, you could go 6 months, right? But if you're in an area where you're building houses and there's a lot of dust and you've got new trees and leaves are going in there, you may only go 2 weeks. Months, like we talked about, months,
Yeah.
storm can blow through and totally load your filter up. You may have to do it 2 days in a row. It's really, there's so many things that can be variable that's where this class kind of comes in handy to remind you that you've got to be, vigilant, watch what's going on in the environment to determine what your particular pool is going to need.
It's tough. You get hit with a dust storm and you're out there brushing it right and you're kicking your high speed on and everything looks good in a day or two. You're going, okay, I'm back to looking good. Everything's in here. So everything that your whole pool was just sitting, dirty, it's all in here now. So you go, it's not like you need to do it that day, but hey, I'm going to plan on it this weekend. I'm going to pop them cartridges open and hose them down. So it's going to depend on sizes. We only sell them in the sets, right? So most places you only get them in a set anyways. What's the 420s? 330, 339. All 4 of them. So, and these are the 425s, the 420s. Generally, everyone in here is probably going to have this, unless you're into some big pool. We generally sell a 420. If you got a smaller one, the price will obviously be even lower. So, and it's for us, like we sell original equipment. These are Pentair filters. And I'm glad you asked that. So you can, the question was on price on the filters. You can go anywhere. Home Depot sells these guys, right? For your filter, if you want to make sure that the problem is you get what you pay for usually. I just talked to a homeowner, I think on Wednesday, bought her cartridges from Home Depot about a year ago. And she's like, I'm cleaning them every 2 weeks and I can't get my pressure any lower. They're just toast. I mean, and it's just cheaper equipment. So they make some good OEM or replacement cartridges. Most retail, Leslie, stuff like that will sell them. We're all here. We're generally right around that price range, and it's OEM stuff. These are the best filters to buy, in my opinion, for the filter. So. Yeah. That's like Ken saying, yeah, pop the top on it, pop in 4 new ones. You can throw those in the garage, and yep. When the kids get home or something from school, hey, this is your chore for today. Yep. So.
That's a tip. It's actually a tip our Pentair rep gave me. You've been in business longer than I have. He'll let the other cartridges sit and dry out, and then he'll just hit them on the sidewalk, and all that dirt will come out and save him from having to hose all that stuff off. So another angle.
You'd be, especially after monsoons. So like when the customer in the back, when she goes to clean hers for the first time, she's gonna know most of you guys are clean. You'll be surprised at the amount of dirt that comes off these guys, especially during monsoon season. You're going, holy cow! If you're doing it in rocks, it'll leave a good amount of mud in the yard. So the second set is always a good thing to have if you needed time-wise, if you just need to pop some new ones in and keep it going. So if some of you have had the pools for a little while, time. If you can pop in some new ones and be done with it, it's always important. And then letting them things go, I'll get them next week, I'll get them next weekend. Well, that thing's starting to build up pressure. The cleaning system's not working. Your salt cell even, this has got a paddle flow switch on the inside. I know it's hard to see. This guy too. So when they are starting to get hammered, the flow switch will start taking less water inside here. Again, this is after the filter, just like your infloors. So if these are 30, 28, 30, 34, we've seen filters high as 40, and people call us and go, this infloor sucks. It's like, you're at 40 PSI, your water's hitting a brick wall. So same thing with here, the flow switch the paddle switch can't engage. And so you're not getting chlorine. And from that point, it's just a snowball. Everything is downhill, right? The pool, if you're in the middle of July, your pool's green within a week or two. So. For like haven't done it at all, you mean? Yeah, and see in the wintertime, depending on where you are, you're probably okay. I would probably do it like this weekend, next weekend, something. But if it was June, July, August, we're talking right now, and you guys are getting hit with the dirt storms and everything else, you're overdue. So again, I'm real big on calendars, every month, 2 months, and just writing it on there. You put it on your phone. Everything's on phones now, your tablet, pop it on there and it alerts you, hey, it's time for a filter clean. So, but that thing, obviously with the in-floor system is the big one. That's where most people notice it. It will affect water features, stuff like that. Water features, when the pressure gets super high, they're calling us going, hey, my shear is not running through like it used to. It just kind of dribbles down the wall, and I've never adjusted RPMs or anything on it. It's going through here and then it's just dying. Same thing here, the paddle switch doesn't engage. Heaters, if you guys got gas heaters, even heat pumps, if you're impeding water flow, those things got flow switches on them and everything else too, like that are kind of measuring water flow, pressure gauges or pressure switches. If they're not getting the water flow, they're not going to fire, right? And sometimes they will fire and then you can damage heaters. So these are super important. So any questions so far? This is always the kind of the big thing. So, so what we didn't like with the pebbles at the bottom of the filter, if you got this drain plug out, you took a hose, you can rinse them all out of there for the most part, right?
When I took it apart, I didn't know. So I had to shop back. And then I just happened to look, I'm like, what is this? I stuck my finger down it.
Yeah.
And I'm digging, and I'm like, this is a cap. So I went under there and undid it, then I just shut the water hose and just cleaned it right out.
And it's not uncommon. A lot of people use dry vacs because, again, and I'm just being honest with you guys, with the plumbing and everything else, this thing's a bear to get to sometimes. They go, no, I'm going to pull the top and I'm going to vacuum the inside of it out, get a lot of that debris out. It doesn't have to be 100%, but a dry vac will get most of that out of there. So if you can get to that plug pretty easily and you can get it spun in, spun out, run a hose through there. With that, sometimes when you open the top off, you're going to get your cartridges down right through the center. If any of you guys have mesquite trees, or again, it's usually always the neighbors, but they're going to be like, when you go to clean your filter, you're going to have it right in the center. A lot of those leaves pile up too. What I recommend is definitely pulling that thing before you even pull these cartridges out, rinsing a lot of that out and trying to get it out of the bottom. If you just pull these cartridges out, you do have a manifold down here now, and you will still have water in there. So all that stuff kind of mixes and kind of turns into a muddy water. Well, if it gets into that manifold, the first thing it hits is that salt cell, if you have one, if not the in-floor system. Then you're gumming up in-floor heads, stuff like that aren't working. So before you ever pull these out, the best thing, if you got a lot of debris in the middle or down at the bottom, a hose, if you can. Like I said, I know the plug's kind of a weird spot. So we were talking about at the beginning of the class before it started, they used to do them in the back, they used to do them on the sides. It just seemed like no matter where they put them, you get to the homeowner's house, this is up against the wall, you get up, some of them are on this side where the plumbers plumb it, it's plumbed right up against it. It'd be ideal situations, are not all the time, where it's open and you get to it right away. So Pentair moved it to the front, kind of seems like the best spot, and it's still kind of tough to get to sometimes. So once these are all clean, and like Ken mentioned too, if you want to actually see a YouTube video, we have one on YouTube of our old service manager hosing the cartridges down, kind of going through the motions. Again, if you have a good nozzle on the end of your hose, I like the brass nozzles that you can spin open to a really tight little, like kind of a wide spread, but tight, and they clean the best for me. Once these are clean, you're going back in, your plug's going back on. This guy has a gasket too, just like the pumps. On this, you can lube these if you would like. What I normally do is lube them and almost kind of wipe them with a towel. You don't want to gunk this stuff on here. You're going to notice, if you guys haven't already, when you go to clean this, you'll have a lot of debris sitting right here from the dust storms and everything that we get out here. Will pile up onto this O-ring. There's nothing worse. You're going to put this thing back together feeling good. Yeah, I'm back rock and rolling with the pool. And this thing goes like this and just drips, right? So this thing I take out, I run through a towel, rinse it with the hose, make sure it looks brand new as much as you can, get it free of any debris, and a towel up here too. Wipe this down. And I swear to you guys, do it every time. And you'll be in a hurry. I'm not going to do it this time. Jason's I don't have time for it. You're going to do it and you're going to put it back together. It's going to leak. So especially if you got that heavier, the pebble, stuff like that from when the pool was first built, a lot of those things will cause a little tiny leak, and it just it's enough to just annoy you. So keep that O-ring clean, keep the lip clean. Same thing on this lid, not too much on this one, but you do got a lip on here. You can kind of, this one, obviously you can take anywhere, you can rinse it out, free of debris, get everything clean. When you're putting this thing back together, this is gonna sit right on top of the O-ring and kind of clamp down onto it and kind of almost smush the O-ring. So a lot of times, like I said, when people have just kind of hammered this with lube, it squeezes out and makes a mess. How many filters have you seen where it's the lube and stuff? You'll get to older pools and the lube's running down the filter and everything's just messy, and you don't really need to lube this that often. And when you do, I almost wipe it clean. You're just keeping the gasket soft. So this guy, when you go back on, come back over here. I almost forgot about it, like I said we did. So this guy's going to go on once you're done. Clean your cartridges. No right order, no correct spot. As long as it's inside the cartridges, you kind of pound them down and get them sitting good. You got a spring up here. You want to make sure all this is on. When you put this top on, this is going to squeeze down on that clamp and kind of compress everything to be tight. So we just ran into it. What? Someone called in or came in this week. I don't know where they got the cartridge from. They had the wrong size in here. I don't know how they had it working for so long, but they bought like a 300 square foot and had it in here. And this thing, you want to make sure when you buy cartridges, it's for your filter. So, okay, go ahead.
That screen, you talked about taking it off, sometimes it gets knocked off. If you don't have that screen on there, it's going to allow debris to blow back through into the pool.
Yeah.
Make sure that screen's on there. If you lose the screen, you can take anything, a piece of cloth, a nylon, anything that you can do over that, put a rubber band or a zip tie to hold it on. Just something to screen so nothing can go back through that pipe. But that's where the air goes to go back into the plumbing to relieve any air that's in the filter. So you got to make sure you've got that screen on the top of that pipe.
Can you buy new ones then?
Yeah. We can get them for you. Amazon, I'm $5-10, I'm sure. So a lot of times when you pull this manifold off, it will sit right inside here, especially if it's getting kind of piled with debris and rocks. You'll pull this off and it will go with it. And so you're going, where the heck is mine? It's stuck inside here. And at that point, you want to pop it out of there, clean it, and then push it back on there before you do your manifold. So, okay, we're all good. This is all back on. Our gasket's clean. The top, I like closing this, and I'll tell you what, I don't want to tell you guys this, but I like closing this so you can see where your gauge is, right? Because when it's on, you can spin this anywhere around the filter, right? I'll get into it a second here. I don't like it closed though, if you forget, and it'll make more sense here. But if you close it, you can kind of see where your gauge is, right? You put it on, you go, okay, I like where this is going. The other thing on here, you do got your air relief up here. I'm kind of talking behind this filter, but this guy's another thing too to kind of pay attention to. If you don't want it blasting that, like if our house is right here, you can spin this around too. If you want it kind of blast more into the landscape rock, something like that, you can spin this around wherever works for you guys. But you want to make sure that's in a spot, and then we got this closed, and now you can see where your gauge is. So you don't want your gauge facing the wall either, right? So what I do, and then I would open it right back up before you do anything. So, and I'll, like I said, I'll make more sense here in a second. So we're leaving this open now. We've got everything sitting pretty good on the gasket. This clamp, this is always kind of tricky until you kind of get used to it. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm gonna spin around. I just need my fall. I can feel it.
So it's pretty straightforward. You got a washer, and you got the spring, then you got another washer, and then you got the nut.
Okay. So again, like we were talking about earlier, this guy that's on the filter, I've met one time in 20 years. He had this spring assembly right here. So what happens is he had this clamp just tight enough to hold pressure, and I'm going to show you guys a way that has to do with this to even eliminate that altogether. He had this thing closed, right? He had the spring in the middle, turn the system on, go, all right, everything's good to go. It held with the clamp just enough to build a pressure up, and then it slipped past this clamp because it wasn't even this tight. Top blew off, hit him in the head. Bad news. Was really a good sport about it, to be honest with you. I mean, and it no grudge against us. He had us come out and actually go over how to do it with him, and that's me and him came up with the idea to take a picture. So he goes, if I had the picture, I would have known this is in the wrong spot. So it's pretty easy, like Ken's saying, but always on the outside. Once you get this thing started, you can, for the most part, hand tighten it. Again, that same rubber mallet that you're using on the lid, you can kind of pound around, kind of take that slack out. You're taking your socket. You're going to tighten this down where these clamps almost kiss each other. And again, if you took that picture the first time, you're going to see the clamps are almost together too. So that's a good reference point too. When you're putting this back together, this is not enough. You need to get this thing pretty tight. It is under a good amount of pressure. So you're going to get that thing all the way tight and you're good to go. You're going to kick the pump on and you're going to do high speed. Now up here, if you've left this open, you want to leave it open. What we're doing is we're filling this canister back up with water, right? So if you have anything wrong on this, and again, if that guy would have done this, he would have never had an issue. You're not compressing air if you leave this open. All that air is being pushed out of here and the water slowly filling the tank up. If he would have had this open, he would have had just a big leak right here. The lid might have went poof, and then it would have just leaked. Instead, he had this tight, he had this tight. That air had nowhere to go in that little bit of time, and it just compressed until air compressed does what? It explodes. So if you leave this open until you have water coming out of it, if you've got all this on right, you'll be good to go. This guy will shoot out water, all your air's out of the filter. You can then close that down and shut your pump off or let it run, whatever you want to do, you're good to go. So
Again, when you take this apart, you have to hit the breakers.
always breakers off. Yeah. I always tell, I mean, any of this stuff, like I said, before you reach into the garbage disposal in here and then the impeller, you want to make sure your pump's off. I always joke around people, the wife sitting inside with the app and everything now and kicking it on, but it's never going to be that case. It's just something's going to come on through a timer that you forgot about or something like that. You're reaching your finger into there, you know what I mean? It'll scare you and you'll be out of there really quick. But you want to shut it all off. If you were pulling baskets and you forgot that the breaker's on and it comes on, this thing's just going to run dry and you're going to have to reprime it. That thing, if you have your 4 cartridges out at the driveway and you're sitting on a chair listening to music, hosing the cartridges down, this thing comes on, it don't know that that's off. So all your water is now just going into your yard. You're gonna come back and half your pool's into the landscape. You know what I mean? So, or a good amount of water at least. If you're pulling through a skimmer and main drain like you guys all should, once it gets below the skimmer, it starts sucking air, and this thing is gonna kill itself, right? It's just gonna die with the drives and everything else going on now with the new technology. But until that point, you're losing 4,000, 6,000 gallons of water. And if you're pulling from all drain, you're gonna pull everything in there until you notice it. So breaker's always off.
You shut the breakers off, would that affect the timer if you have it?
That's a good question. The question is, if you shut your breakers off, will it affect the timer? The answer is no. There's 2 ways to go about it though too. You have a double throw breaker in our panel that will shut just the pump off. As long as you shut just the pump off, you're not gonna run into any issues with that thing coming on, right? If you shut all of them off, you're shutting your panel off. That's got an internal backup in it. It will save all your settings, all your schedules, all your speeds, everything, right? You don't need to do that single throw. As long as you kill your pump, you're safe as can be. So
That's the one that's close to the system, right? Not
Yeah.
the main,
it depends. It depends on every setup's a little bit different. Most of our pools have the breakers at the pool equipment in the panel. So you open up the panel. If you've got a standalone system where you guys, is anyone controlling their pump from the pump itself? Or you guys all panels? So not in here, but some of them have what's called a standalone. We don't have panels. Everything's controlled through that brain. On your guys, it's just a display because it's connected to the panel. Those guys might be in the main panel of the house. It just depends on how the electricians, what they wired or what they ordered. Every pool's different, so it's hard to narrow it down. But yeah. As long as and if you feel safer, kill them all. You know what I mean? Kill all the breakers and be done with it. So you just don't want to be out front cleaning all 4 of them and going, yeah, feeling good, and your pool's in the yard when you walk back there. So
how should we run the high and low?
So that's a great question too. So high and low, any kind of filtration, it's kind of like everything else we talked about. It's really up to your pool, your backyard. We were talking about earlier, the bather load, which is the amount of bodies in the water. If you're getting into swimming, you got kids, you got 6 or 7 of you in there a lot, you may want to increase your hours. Generally, what I tell people is to try and run them, 6-7 hours on a high speed is what we generally run, and then 3 or 4 on a low, and then 3 or 4 on a high to clean the pool. Remember, your high speed is what's cleaning the pool. All the pop-ups are coming up, really blasting all the dirt around. The drains, the skimmer they got the most suction at that point. Low speed's just designed to circulate the pool. If you've got a salt cell, it's enough RPMs to trigger that paddle, and this is kicking in chlorine. So there's a lot of variables. So with your question, I'll tell you this. So most pools generally 10 to 12 hours a day in the summertime, right? With low and high combined. If you're getting to a point where you're running at 10 hours a day, you got a bigger pool, you got a lot of people swimming in there, and this thing's maxed out at 100%, the only thing you can do at that point is increase your hours, right? We had a pool in Mesa we scratched our heads on for about 3 months going, don't know what's going on. We were replacing salt cells, we're putting bigger cells on, we're doing all kinds of stuff. The lady tells us on like the 5th trip that she does swim lessons in her pool 5 days a week. There's 30 kids in the pool twice a day for 5 days of the week. We got to a point where it was the bigger salt cell that Pentair offers, and she runs her low speed 24 hours a day. She had to, because chlorine, her pool's always green. And I go, it's like what we talked about, the bather load in the pool. All the bodies in the pool are eating up chlorine. You got 30 kids in there with the parents, or 20 kids with parents. There's no more chlorine in it by the end of the day. Then this thing was coming on and running 10 hours a night, trying to catch up, and it just wasn't enough. So really depends on your pool. Depends on how much you're swimming, what's around you. If you got a lot of those pesky trees from the neighbors, stuff like that, you're going to want to run it a little more, keep a little more chlorine in there. And if it's only you and your wife, you and your husband, something like that, going, we swim in it a couple hours a day, you can reduce it down to as low as possible, and the pool's staying clean. You know, cool, I'm running 7 hours a day total, you know what I mean? The pool's staying awesome. So it's generally
You can check with that. Chlorine.
on the test strips.
Right.
Yeah.
That will tell you whether you need more.
Yeah. So on the test strips or test kits, whatever you have, when you're testing for chlorine, if you have a salt system, and it works with tabs too, if you're testing for chlorine on here, you're going, okay, you want to be in about that 1.5 range. You don't need a ton of chlorine, right? So you want to keep it just enough to be sanitized. If you're coming in here and you're going, wow, my chlorine's dark purple on my strip, you're running this thing too much. So if, let's say you're only running 8 hours a day total with low and high, you got this thing maxed out at 100%. You know, I can kick this thing down to like 60 or 70 and see if my chlorine start to drop down. Same thing with chlorine tabs. If you're floating 4 tabs in there every week, generally like in the wintertime you'll see it, and you go and stick your strip in, that thing just lights up. You go, oh, maybe I can use 1 tab from now on instead of 4. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can go into the system, you can adjust your chlorine percentage down and adjust it to your pool. So the tough thing about schedules, like when you get into a lot of the retail stores, I think Leslie's does it a lot. They're kind of trained like every 10 degrees is an hour that you need to run your pool. It's just not, every pool is different. There's pools that we built that are, we call them spools. They're a little 6,000 kind of big spa. They don't need to run 10, 11 hours a day. So, and you got my buddy out by me in Santan has a 61,000 gallon pool. He's got 2 pumps on it that run 18 hours a day, and he's on horse property. He has to. So you go into Leslie and you go, oh, every degree or every 10 degrees an hour, it's not enough for his. So you guys got to be kind of the good judge in your own backyard, lower or higher. If you're running it 12 hours a day and it's staying really clean, maybe drop your high speed down to 2 or 3 and your low 5 or 6 and see how it does. So, and then you're just saving energy. So.
Does it make a difference if the high speed or the low speed burst per second, you know, on the system? I mean,
I don't think so. We used to do high speed first when we were doing startups, and then as we learned the pumps a little more, we switched to a low speed first, and then had it finish out at hie speed. I don't think it really matters.
Programmable though, then through the keypad then on the pump control panel.
Yeah, yep, through your schedules, or if you got remotes out there.
I just have the one handheld remote to put stuff on.
Okay, so you would be out at your panel. Yeah, you'd adjust your schedules, and you're going to adjust schedules with season. So some of you guys run 10, 12 hours a day in the summertime, not nearly. You can drop down to 4 or 5 in the wintertime. You know what I mean? Again, it goes with all the dust storms, all that kind of stuff, the swimming, all that stuff. So on with salt system. So are you guys on? Do you have the phone app, or are you? What?
No.
Just the panel. So you're going to go in. Get with me after. I'll show you. I'll walk you through real quick if we need to. You're going to go into menu, and then you're going to arrow down to settings. and then you're going to IntelliChlor. Once you get into IntelliChlor, you'll see your percentage that's there. If you're at like 90% and you just got a ton of chlorine in there, you're going to drop that thing down to like 60 or 70, go a week or two, and go from there. So generally, go ahead. The percentage? No, you can go into your panel or the remotes anytime, whenever you want, and go in and see your percentage. So.
Is this true for the spots to like set the temperature down or up?
Like a hot tub or part of your pool, you mean? Like a pool spa? Yeah, that spills into the pool.
Right.
It's all part of it. So if you're running 9 hours a day total, your spa has a zone for the in-floor system that's coming up in there, and everything's cycling and running together. So when that thing's producing chlorine, it's dumping it into both. It's one body of water at that point.
What about the heat? So we have a heater. So can I control the temperature in there too?
So when you're heating, like when you're heating the spa,
Yeah.
when you're heating the spa, you're going to heat it as needed. You guys are using the spa, right? When the system comes on that night, you're losing that heat. Unless you
But I mean, like, when my wife gets here, she's like, it's too hot, it's too hot. Can I put the temperature down?
Oh, yeah.
In the same area?
On the panel, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I usually use my iPad.
Yeah. Same thing. You're going to go in, yeah, if you got the Screen Logic app, you're going into that spa and you're just dialing that dial down to a little bit cooler.
Okay.
So, yep. Yep.
We do have on the YouTube channel, there is a good video on the Screen Logic, how to control your pool with the Screen Logic, goes through all of it. Those steps that you need to do to control your pool with the Screen Logic.
If we have the salt system, in the summer when it gets hot, do you still use the tablet?
No. No, I mean, the whole reason you guys are buying this is that's your chlorine production. So
Only in the winter.
in the winter time when they get really, so when this thing shuts off and you get the cold water light pretty consistently, some people will float like a tab. You only need like a tab in there to float around. That's generally enough because the water's so cold. You're not swimming in it for the most part. Some people do, but mostly out here, we're all babies. I mean, the water's too cold. So yeah, you're not getting in anything below like 75. So go ahead.
I have two questions. The first one, is it possible to run your high speed too much? Because I keep having to add the muriatic acid and then I have to run for 4 hours. And this is like several times a week, in addition to the regular stuff that we have set. And the second question is, what is the lowest you can set your percentage at? Because I'm at 35% and my chlorine is still.
That's probably because you're doing two things. If your percentage is at 35, you're running the system for a long time too. So if you're running 18 hours a day, you're still running 30-40% of that. Was that 5-6 hours of chlorine production that you're doing? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So you can kick your hours down too at that point. And your other question is the pH will have nothing to do with how often you're running it. Are you running it when you add acid, you mean?
Yeah, like when you guys came out, you said when I have to add the acids, then I run the high speed for 4 hours.
It's 4 hours a little overkill. I think depending on your pool, there's egg timers in the system that you can set up. If you go into the schedule aspect of it, you can do a second schedule and call it an egg timer. Really, if you're adding if you're adding 2-3 cups, yeah, if you're doing 24 ounces, you could kick your high speed on like an egg timer for like an hour. So you can you can run that for an hour, walk away from it. You know it's going to shut off. You know what I mean? And you're good to go. Yeah, you don't need to be running.
The whole idea is you don't want that acid falling down to the
Yeah.
bottom of the pool. The system has to circulate it, get it mixed in with the water.
Anytime you're adding acid, deeper, as deep as you can go into the pool. You don't want to do it on the steps, not on the Bajas. Acid, like Ken said, it's just like on this. The acid is heavier than water. If you're dumping in 2-3 cups right over the step, eventually you're going to etch the step. And
I'd walk around, right, put a cup in here, go down a little bit, put a cup in, so you spread it out.
Totally what I do.
yeah.
Throw it in the middle.
Yeah, I wouldn't throw acid.
Carefully.
Yeah, but the schedules are going to just depend on your guys' own pool. I'm never, hey, you need to run it 12 hours a day. I mean, if you guys got the smaller pool, you said?
Ours is,
Oh no, so you're about average. I mean, so yeah, if you're getting into like a 5,000 or 6,000 gallon little spool, those guys run 12 hours a day is not needed. There's one that I was at the other day. Guy runs at 3 hours a day total. So
this is up a lot because I'm like, I'm adding the acid, but I'm not realizing that I'm creating the chlorine. And then I'm using the acid to knock it back down or whatever, that maybe I have it set too high, and it's running too much.
those are going to run separate too.
to answer your question.
It's just running the pump extra long after the acid that increases.
Right, so you want
Chlorine
to
production.
percentage down, and you can, correct me if I'm wrong, you can go down to 0.
Yep.
Right? You can drop the percentage to 0.
Well, I should.
Well, you don't need chlorine. Yeah, so what if you have too much chlorine?
Yeah.
Drop your percentage down to 0 until it comes down, and then turn it back up.
Just remember it's at 0. We'll get the call 2 weeks later. My pool's green. I hate the salt system. Like, what's your percentage at? 0. You're not getting any chlorine in. So,
All right, so we gotta get set up for the 10:30 class. If you have other questions, we'll be out in the lobby, and we'll answer any questions you have. Once again, thanks for coming. How about Jason, his first full score?
thank you.
I've got some questions on the app and the speaker.
Let's get out here so we get set up for the YouTube.
Be a fun year, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, they're gonna be dangerous. And
I have a question.
go ahead.
When I put my pump on high, I put it in timeout for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
When I put it on high, there's a delay before it goes high. It's like 10 minutes on the low speed before it kicks on. It used to just go on high every time, but now it does not.
It might just be something in the settings. Are you on the app or what kind of remote you have?
I just have phone app.
What I do when you get home is menu button down to your schedule and just see what's going on your high. You should have 1 of 1, maybe 2 of 2 if you have an egg timer. If you just see 1 of 1, unless someone set up a delay in there for some reason.
Well, it was good, and then I had a pool company, I had an Nexus pool company, and they changed a bunch of people on me, and one guy goofed it up, and it wouldn't do anything from the panel. So you guys came back out and got it working again, but since then, there's a delay in there, so.
I gotcha.
I don't know.
It's probably in the menu somewhere. But you can, I mean, if you really needed to, how old's the pool?
October 7th, 8th.
If you can even walk over there right now if you wanted to.